Waiting for the titles to change. Okay. I will call to order the Glendale Redevelopment Agency for June 7th, 2001. 2011. Can we have a roll call, please?
Agency members: Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero. Weaver. Chairman Manukian.
Here, can we have the city clerk's report, please?
Certainly. The agenda for June 7, 2011 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, June 2nd, 2011 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. At 4 is the approval of minutes. Could you read the item into the agenda, into the record?
The minutes?
Yeah.
Certainly. It's the minutes of the regular redevelopment agency and city council and redevelopment agency meetings of Tuesday, May 31st, 2011.
I'll move approval.
Second.
With no objections, the minutes will be approved as submitted. Next is oral communications.
No cards were submitted.
Okay, next is, what is next? Business agenda?
On the business agenda at 6A is the Director of Community Development regarding Alex Regional Theater's third quarter report for January 1st through March 31st of fiscal year 2010 to 2011 by Glendale Arts. 6A1 is a motion to note and file the report.
Can we have a report?
Good afternoon, Agency Chair Manukian and members of the agency. I'm Elena Bobolian with the Redevelopment Agency. We're here today to present the third quarter report from Glendale Arts on the financial operations of the Alex Theater and to provide you with updates on 4 capital improvement projects. As the owner of the theater, the agency receives quarterly reports from Glendale Arts on the financial status of the theater. During this past quarter, covering the third quarter of January until March, Glendale Arts saw an increase in attendance, activity days, and net rental revenues when compared to the same period last year. The management agreement between the agency and Glendale Arts also calls for Glendale Arts to maintain 2 reserve accounts to fund capital projects beyond the agency's assistance. And I'm happy to report that as of this report, the accounts exist and they have healthy balances. If you have specific financial questions, Barry McComb, the Executive Director, is here to answer them. However, at this time, I'd like to go over some brief updates on our capital improvement projects currently in the works. By way of background, in 2007, city staff, agency staff, and Alex Theater staff got together and put together a comprehensive list of capital improvement projects to fund at the theater between then and 2015, when agency funding was scheduled to terminate. And the purpose of the list was to make physical upgrades to the theater so that it'd be in the best condition at the time the agency went away. At this point, I want to cover 4 of the projects that we're currently working on. The first is a front facade refurbishment. This project involves repairs to the front theater facade, and it involves decorative stenciled surfaces and a lot of hand painting. This project is needed because over the past 19 years since the initial rehabilitation, the front facade has deteriorated, and the project is going to take 8 weeks to complete, and the scaffolding will be going up later on this month. The next project is the roof replacement project. This project
Wasn't the roof replaced at one point a few years ago? I thought the city paid for that.
not at the Alex Theater, no.
Okay.
This project involves assessing the auditorium and stage roofs, and the items we'll be looking at would include load capacity, determining the remaining life of the current materials, and we also wanted to look at solar panels to see if we can reduce energy costs. We received one cost proposal, which was higher than we had budgeted, so we'll be going out and receiving some additional cost proposals before we move forward. We anticipate bringing that back to you sometime late summer. The next project is the forecourt renovations project. This project involved making upgrades to the forecourt area to make it more welcoming for pre-event shows and post-event shows. This project was scheduled to take place over the summer in July and August. However, the architect was unable to complete the drawings in time in order to allow construction to take place over the summer, and we simply couldn't push the project back a few months because the theater had already booked events for the remainder of this summer. As a result, we are recommending that the forecourt improvement projects be grouped with the theater expansion project, which I will cover next. To preface this project, Glendale The Glendale Arts Board is fully aware of the loss of agency funding in 2015, and they've adopted an aggressive business strategy to prepare for that. One of the key components of their business strategy involves the expansion of the facilities, which was one of the items on our CIP list. This project involves construction on the southeast surface parking lot to reconfigure the loading dock to allow adequate semi-truck movements given the potential development to the south. Also, this project would address the lack of dressing room and storage space at the theater and improve ADA access to the backstage area and mezzanine. These
So
are-
that's the parking lot right next to the theater, to the
Correct.
south of it,
Correct.
where council members kind of go in when there's an event?
Correct.
Okay.
In March of this
That's
year...
not a good project. No, just-
We'll reserve the parking spaces. In March of this year, we asked the agency to move the theater expansion on the priority list of projects in light of the project to the south, and we think it makes sense to address both projects at the same time to gain efficiencies. We had originally earmarked $2 million for the project. However, because the project would address ADA components, we are recommending that the ADA money that was put aside to make ADA improvements be grouped. And so we have $2.5 million budgeted to do this project.
How much was there in the ADA upgrade
There was
program?
$300,000 in the ADA, and the other remaining $200,000 comes from reducing and reworking some of the other capital improvement projects.
I wasn't privy to the discussions as to why funding would be cut out in 2015. Was there a particular reason for that?
The Central Glendale Redevelopment Project area sunsets in 2015. When the project area was created in 1972, it had a life, and it ends in 2015, and that's when agency assistance to the Alex Theater terminates.
Isn't the project life extended because of the bonds that you issued?
No. You have 10 years after the effective life of the project area ends in order to pay debt. But at that point, you can no longer essentially operate and do projects. So you can make debt service on outstanding debt, and you can collect tax increment for that purpose, but your operational purpose ends at that point. Now, it's possible as a result of the compromises that have been proposed in state legislation as an alternative to eliminating redevelopment, that if some of those compromises to shift resources to schools were approved, and if an agency took advantage of them, you could add some additional years to the life of our central project area and San Fernando. But as of yet, that legislation hasn't progressed. So for the time being, we face, if we're not eliminated in the next several weeks, then our current life expectancy is 2015. At that point, the redevelopment agency wouldn't be able to utilize tax increment for this purpose.
How's the Alex Theater doing so far financially?
All things considered, doing well. They've reduced costs. They've, while you were not on council, they created Glendale Arts. They restructured the previous.
Are the operations in the black now?
Since you're getting into specifics, I'll call
Okay.
Barry McComb, the executive director, to answer.
Okay.
And actually, I'd concluded my presentation.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Actually, over the last 10 years, we've finished the year, the operational year in the black, all but 2 years. So we've been doing well. Not with huge profits at the end of the year, but certainly with living within our means. I think last year we were in the profit before depreciation, and after depreciation there was a loss of about $2,000.
But I think for the purpose of your questioning,
That
in the
includes
black means in the black along with the city's operational
That's
subsidy
correct.
and capital subsidy.
And what is the city's subsidy at this point?
415,000 operational.
It's always been approximately that much.
Yeah, we receive the management fee of $415,000 each year, and then if you average the capital dollars that have been used to upgrade the theater, that averages out to be about another $200,000. So as we're moving forward, looking towards the eventual elimination of the funding, we're not just looking at the 415. we're looking at the bigger picture to ensure that we'll also be able to continue, the upgrades. The roof's going to have to be replaced again someday. The carpeting's going to have to be replaced again someday.
And do you have a business plan that you're going to follow to?
We do. We're actually following up on a couple of different directions, which I've shared with the city staff that's gone through our board over the last year. Probably the most primary one is economy of scale.
What is it again?
The economy of scale by increasing the number of activities that we're involved in, such as adding the Glendale Pops Orchestra. We're able to take our overhead costs, which traditionally have rested solely on the Alex Theater, and now start to spread that expense across a greater range of programmatic activities. So as we are going into next year, which is really the first full year of the Glendale Pops Orchestra, which has really increased that kind of the side of our balance sheet, our overhead costs right now are about $350,000, $375,000 a year. About $160,000 of that is going to go over to the Glendale Pops Orchestra side. So we've looked at ways to eliminate the overhead immediately, and overhead is things like my salary, our financial staff, as well as looking at ways to either increase different revenue centers within the theater, such as box office, or to reduce expenses. And one of the things we're looking at is the potential of putting solar panels on the roof to impact our electrical usage, which is one of our biggest expenses that we have in our budget each year.
A number of years ago, I recall that we agreed that improvements that deal with the building, the Alex, not the expansion, but capital improvements would be done by the city. Is that still in force, or are we?
That's the average of about $250,000 that Barry was mentioning. We generally have budgeted in redevelopment about $250,000 a year for capital improvements.
Because the building is the city's building.
Oh, yes, the building is the city's, and frankly, they don't have the capacity to do. I mean, frankly, what we'd like someday is that they'd have the capacity to take it over completely, including maintaining the building. That's the ultimate goal, because the only resources we've had or will likely have to do that is redevelopment agency, and it will, if indeed we aren't eliminated, it'll probably go out of existence in terms of operations in 2015. If one of the compromises come to pass, there could be more time, but in likelihood not more than 5 years. That's kind of the best compromise alternative that we've heard of so far. One alternative was 10 years, but that was getting some pushback from the legislator that was willing to support it.
Are we still attempting to tie our two project areas together to extend the life of the central project area?
No, for a number of reasons. Phil, can you elaborate a little further?
One of the main reasons not to was we couldn't find enough blight to as defined by the code, to withstand a challenge back when we were looking. That's even heightened now with the potential elimination of redevelopment. We just don't see that it's a viable option, given what the counties will do, Los Angeles County, to oppose it. So we were short going in on finding areas of blight and putting the two together. Now that's been heightened with the budget situation in Sacramento. We haven't dropped it altogether. We've done the work, but there were other things that we needed to do first.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
So our subsidy is how much? 400,000?
Well, call it 665,000 and change. If you average out the capital and the operating subsidy, you're in the neighborhood of 665,000.
Okay.
It's actually a management fee that we pay to Glendale Arts to operate.
Okay.
And then there is a list of capital improvements that Mr. Manukian referred to that we take on each year. It comes to you as part of our budget, and then we bring each project to you for approval.
So what in the world are we going to do in 2015 where we don't have that money to pay?
You've been working on for quite some time, worrying about it.
Solar panels aren't going to get us out of this thing. This is. I'd like to see a detailed business plan as to how this is going to, because between now and then we're going to be putting in, 4 years times 6, significant amount of money. If we're just going to go off the cliff at 2015,
we haven't anticipated going off the cliff. I don't know.
Financially.
Yeah, well, we have been giving thought to this for a good number of years without a lot of great alternatives. Mr. McComb's efforts, I think, are one of the most promising and long-lasting. We have looked at the potential, for example, of in the final throes of our redevelopment project area, establishing what I've kind of called an endowment, where you set aside a sum of money, the interest and principal on which would then get them another 10 or 15 or 20 years, which may give them time to even move closer to the objectives that Mr. McComb has. The redevelopment AZ does generate non-tax increment resources that will go beyond the life of the central project area. And you can look at those being utilized. Now, we haven't held those out because there's lots of uses for those funds, and our preference would be that the ALEX becomes closer and closer, if not completely self-sufficient in the long term. But there are alternatives.
If I could add to Mr. Starbird's answer a little bit. With the plan that we have in place, we believe if all things remain on track, and of course in the economy, one never knows. The arts is always the first to feel it when things start to go south. But based on monies that we currently collect under a facility fee policy, we believe that will be enough on a yearly basis to replace the capital needs. And Jack Alloway and my staff has extended out 10 years beyond 2015 to estimate what projects we believe that we'll need to take on ourselves. And looking at past income trends through what we've collected through facility fees, we believe that we'll have enough in our own maintenance account to be able to take those projects on, and in some cases, hopefully also through applying for grants. The bigger challenge for us is the replacement of the management fee. And currently, as Phil was saying, we're paid that fee. At the end of the year, if the Alex Theater loses money, we're responsible for that, if it's above and beyond what the 415 is. The contract specifically states that we don't come back to the council and ask for an additional bailout. So we watch our budget very carefully as a result of that. By dividing our operation up into strategies of how to increase business, strategies of how to increase revenue through the box office, cost savings strategies through both staffing and things such as energy saving, and some of that is as simple as converting fixtures over to LEDs. Unfortunately, LEDs don't really work for theatrical lights yet, but hopefully by 2015 that technology will have caught up to that. Those are all huge cost-saving strategies to us. If at the end of the day we're not where we need to be in 2015, we have what I like to refer to as a Plan B. And a Plan B is basically reducing the operation down to where we're able to operate the theater, but we're not doing all the pluses that we do for the community, such as sponsoring community events, helping groups come into the theater at reduced rates. So we would still be able to operate the theater much in the way that the Civic Auditorium operates now, with kind of a basic staff structure, but not doing all the marketing and added community benefit that we bring to the table now.
I think it would be useful, maybe as we wrap up the budget, as a next phase, to come in and have a study session where we talk about this. There has been a lot of thought has been given to how do we eventually transition the Alex Theater after the days of redevelopment. And with your interest, now would be a good time after we put our basic budget together to come in and spend some time with you and talk about some of the things we've been talking about for quite some time. It's a concern, but it's not one that we have ignored.
I'd be interested in that after we get through the
Well, at a minimum, we do own the building, and we do have to maintain it as property owners. Does the redevelopment agency own it, or the city?
Redevelopment agency, well, did we transfer it to the general fund? Okay, so as a result of the recent threat to redevelopment, we've actually transferred that asset to the general fund.
So at a minimum, we have to plan on maintaining the building in a working order.
Well, as a minimum, you have a lot of options you could take. You don't have to own the building. I mean, you could sell the building. You could board up the building. So there's lots of options you could take, none of which would be very palatable short of continuing its current use. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the council after 2015 can deal with selling the building.
We've thought of that option, too.
Any other comments? What is next? We don't have.
Any agency. Well, there's a motion to note and file this report.
We need a motion to note and file? Okay, it's been moved.
Second.
Second, roll call.
Agency members: Frieden,
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Quintero? Weaver? Chair Menuchyan?
Yes. Are there any agency member or staff comments?
Move we adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Second for them? Thank you.